This is the Meaning Business Podcast, your go-to source for business tips, advice, growth, and exit strategies, hosted by Bruce Kudry and Peter Spinda. Each episode, we bring you real stories, expert insights, and practical advice to help you succeed in today's market. Let's dive in.
Hey, Pete.
Bruce.
Are you a reader? Do you read much?
I read a little bit, you could say that.
Actually, are you a reader of books or audio books or both?
Both. I'm a hybrid. I love physical books, and I should actually share a picture of my library that I've got at home. I've got a library, I've got lots and lots of books. I collect books and love them.
So I was just flying back from Perth and I had a book and audio books, and I was flipping between, and I felt that I needed both types of stimulation and I also figured out that for relaxation, just a novel is better to read as a book.
Especially on holidays when you're sitting back. I remember going on holiday, sitting back in the hammock and just reading books.
But for me, if it's a business book or something, it's better for me to close my eyes and listen to it as an audio book or do it while I'm driving. Isn't that weird? Podcasts I love listening to while I'm driving.
Depends on the book. So some books I'll listen to and then go, okay, I need to get the physical copy, and then I go and buy the physical copy, and then I doodle all through the pages. I'm a scribbler.
Okay.
Other books,
And then you give it back to the library.
Exactly.
A few pages torn out. That was a good one.
I love books. At any point in time, I reckon I've got, how many books am I reading at the moment? 4 physical books, 1 audio book. Only because on Audible, it's too difficult to stop and start multiple books. So I've got 1 in Audible and 4 physical books that I'm reading at the moment. Depending on my mood will determine what I read. I read every day. My routine is minimum 15 minutes in the morning, Monday to Friday. First thing I do, make a cup of coffee, and I just read. I read for 15 minutes physical books. And then usually on the weekends, I might spend an hour to multiple hours reading and that sort of thing.
So in any week or month, you're absorbing a lot of information.
Continuously on different topics. So right now I'm reading a book on mathematics. I'm reading a book on psychology. I'm reading a book on business model generation. It's a second version of a business model book. I'm reading the Quran.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
And I'm also listening to an audio book about the future of business in the next, say, 10 years, emerging technologies, politics, that sort of thing. So quite broad.
So a lot of business owners...
I was just
I like
to say,
podcasts.
what about you?
Podcasts, sorry to digress here.
No,
my
go
wife
for it.
brought back a stack from a library at her school. They're going to throw these books out, so we can keep them. But we can't. Once we finish them, we're going to throw them out. So I've got a stack of Jack Reacher books.
Yeah, yep.
And they are pathetic. I've got that many, 2 chapters to go. I'm pushing myself to read. I'm going to throw the rest away.
Isn't that the worst? When you start a book, you're halfway through and you realise, I don't want to finish this, but you've already read so much.
There's the bad guys, right? So the bad guys have done something bad. So Jack Reacher's just going to kill them. How does that... It doesn't work for me, It's very innovative the way he kills them.
So you prefer novels to...
No. Well, this is it. This is what I was going to get to. So a lot of business owners like me, you're dealing with business all day, every day. When you get home, I can listen to podcasts about business, but there's also that need to switch off and not be immersed in business and thoughts and, share prices and other commodities as well. It's just good to have a break. So a novel takes you away, from the everyday. But I think that's a limiting factor for a lot of business owners because they're not absorbing information, they're not keeping up to date, they're not challenging themselves mentally.
It's a big limiting factor. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of business owners started their business as a one man, one woman band. There might be, or they might have bought it. They're plumber or whatever they're doing, and they're just they're good at what they do, and so customers come through, and next thing you know, if 10 years down the track, they've got a team, and et cetera, et cetera. But they themselves haven't really evolved as business owners. They're still operators. They're doing what they do really well. They might still be a really good plumber or whatever it might be, but they just haven't evolved from a business perspective. And that's one of the common themes that I see out there is that often we're talking to business owners, but they don't understand business, either because they've been too busy doing things on the day-to-day, or simply some of them just don't care. They don't want to. They don't want to.
I've seen this in a very good friend of mine who business would stress him and it was stressful. And so he would not want to think about work when he wasn't working, but he was always worried about things. and he would eat to kind of
Oh, wow.
take away the pressure,
Yeah.
you know. And not a very good physical or mental place to be, but very common. I see it a lot. And it's hard to get yourself in that position where you go, I've got to change. I've got to get into a good routine of reading books or stimulating myself or learning or, you know, doing a course or doing a degree or learning how AI works or whatever it is. It's very challenging for people to want to take that on.
But what ends up happening is that it becomes a limiting factor in the business. It becomes a limiting factor for the business.
100%.
So
They can't grow.
No, they definitely can't. And look, there's, we can get all theoretical in terms of how it all works and the human brain and things like that. But it's been proven that in order for an organisation to really grow year in, year out and really become a leader in the industry, you've got to be an innovative business. But if you want to be innovative, you've got to have an open mind. You've got to be willing to absorb new information, seek out the new information. You've got to then be willing to take that information and go, okay, I'm going to practice this. I'm going to experiment with it. And it might be that, I don't know, let's say in your business, Bruce, you might say to one of the team members, hey, Charmaine, I want you to learn how to use ChatGPT really well for this, this, and this. And then that person gets that new skill. You bring that skill into the business, and take that and turn it into an innovative competitive advantage for the organisation. That's the benefit of continuous learning.
Yeah, and if you don't, someone else will.
Absolutely. But therein lies the problem, because then as a business owner, I can hear people right now saying, okay, that's all well and good, but where do I find the time? I'm tired by the time I get home. I've got a family, I've got to make dinner, I've got this, that, and the other.
It's an easy thing to put off and not do.
Absolutely. This is where we come in, and this is the biggest benefit I believe that a business advisor brings to the table to the business owner is that we eat, live, breathe business. I mean, I know someone like myself and the other advisors on the team. This is our passion. This is what we do. This is why we're in this business. I could have started an e-commerce business in many other, going into retail or anything else, but I've chosen this because this is the passion is business. The passion is to help other business owners.
That's actually the passion, to help others.
Absolutely. And how I like to help personally, I love it through education. I love it through imparting knowledge, wisdom into other people, and then showing them how they can leverage that to gain an advantage, a competitive advantage. And it works so well, so powerful.
And just to counter that, sometimes reading or listening or learning, you'll hear or see something and you'll think, no, that's not right. It might tell you to, I don't know, discount your prices or something.
That's
and
right.
you might go, no, this is not right. So you don't have to agree with what you're reading or learning or hearing.
At all.
That can be also stimulating to help you firm up on your opinion. It's like politics, if you're a right winger and all you do is listen to right wing policies and ideology, you're not exposing yourself to the other side of it and thinking about how that works and what's driving that.
You've actually uncovered something really important. So one of the biggest issues we've got in today's world is that too many people, business owners themselves, go to social media and that's where they're getting the information from. So if you go to Facebook and you're getting your information from there, the problem with that, the problem is that one, we've got misinformation. There's more and more of that. But the other issue is that the algorithms, we've spoken about this in other podcast episodes. What does the algorithm do? The algorithm sees that Bruce is reading content on motor vehicles, on cars, on motorbikes.
Knife hunting or something.
And that's all you see. And so if you're seeing political content, for example, that's coming from left and that's all you're consuming, then that's all you're going to see. And so your reality is that. But then what ends up happening is you miss out on the other part of reality, the other perceptions. You miss out on all those other things.
Exactly. And I'm not talking about politics or religion here, but in everything, nothing is all right or all wrong. Same in business theory.
Pull it all together and
figure out what works for you.
Exactly. Like the reason I'm reading the Quran is because I want to expand my mind so that I can understand that religion, those people, their mindset.
Why do they become so obsessed with...
Why, that's right. Yeah. And there's so many learnings out of all of this.
Absolutely.
I've already read the Bible and you take all the different concepts.
Exactly.
And it's not because I'm religious. It's because I want to understand how people think. I want to understand the behaviours.
Well, it's hypocritical to criticise, say, for example, the Islamic religion without understanding having read it.
That's right.
You don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's hypocritical to criticise socialism or communism if you haven't understood why it is the way it is. And it's the same with business theory and running a business. It's hypocritical or ignorant. So I'm not going to put more people on, or I'm not going to pay bonuses, or I'm not going to give equity, or I'm not going to grow through acquisition. All these because that's how I am. It's to look at it, to look at all options, and to take what you can learn from books and podcasts, or better still, get someone like you who's read it all, filtered at it, comes to the business owner. You can be the what's the word? The condensed version of all that stuff.
The walking Wikipedia.
Distilled, that's the word I'm looking for. You can have that distilled information and you can help people with the options and let them, so they can still not have to read a book on the weekend. They can still play golf or go to the pub or do lawn bowls or go motorbike riding.
Absolutely.
Without having to worry about it.
And the other part is that, yes, there's a lot of books. So you can say we bring a lot of theory, a lot of that sort of knowledge. But you know what? The other part of being a good business advisor is that you've been there, done that. So over the years, you've earned your stripes because you run your own businesses. You've made the mistakes. You've had the successes. You've made the money. You've lost the money. You've done all these things. So you can put it together. And really, to be good at your craft, you've got to be at the forefront of your craft. So from my point of view, for me as a business advisor, I've got to be at the forefront of business. So, last 3 years I had a look before. I've got 122 titles in my Audible account. I've listened to 102 or so of those over the last 3 years. I can't remember how many books, I'd be dozens of books that I've read in that same time. And because of my university studies, I've read close to 200 research papers as well. And that's in 3 years. Phenomenal amount of reading and information being consumed. Now,
that's why you got Cotters and Lewins mixed up.
Yeah, that's it. And that's why I can, you randomly sort of go, oh, hang on a second, I read about this and this somewhere else, and there's this theory and that theory. But you can distill it, you can bring it into an engagement and go, okay, you know what, Bruce, you're saying that we've got some people issues. Actually, there's a really good activity that we can go through. Let me bring up this Excel spreadsheet. Let's go through this. Let's apply it to your business. And then at the same time, I can also go, you know what, in that business over there, we did this and we saw that as an outcome. Over there, we did this, we saw that as an outcome. You know what, for your business, I reckon a hybrid will work really well. So you bring that experience and rather than a business owner throwing the dice and experimenting on their own and then crossing their fingers and hoping it works.
Turning your business into a casino.
That's right.
A lottery.
Business advisor can come in and guide you. They can also be there when you have some questions, when you're doubting yourself. So last night, and I said this to you this morning, Bruce, that we were together yesterday down the Gold Coast. On the way home, I called a client because he was in a bit of a head funk. And I spent 30 minutes acting as almost like a psychologist for him, but it was really unraveling this matrix of decisions that he needs to make at high level in the business. And he was getting really confused about the different
Couldn't
options.
See the wood for the trees.
Exactly. And so we talked about it. I challenged him. He then challenged me back. And through him challenging me, he then realized, that's the solution.
Yeah.
And so it's a business advisor isn't the sort of person that will come in and give you all the solutions. No, it's about having conversations and the sounding board. So then we together, we come to the solutions. We come to the realizations. And in his case, he came to it. And I was like, you know what? You're right. That's actually the path that you've got to take. And together, we ended up sort of unraveling. He's now got the direction. And I'm meeting him tomorrow morning again to now go forward.
He needed that conversation, validation, and to sort it out himself.
Absolutely.
If you were telling him this is what you got to do, mate, it probably wouldn't have worked. He needed to rationalise it himself and figure out and go, this is what I got to do.
So in his situation, the way that I started is I said, okay, here are the 4 different things that I see that you could do. I said, option 1 is this, option 2 is this, option 3 is this, option 4 is this. And then he challenged me on all of them, especially option 4. And on challenging option 4, we realised, actually, there's option 5. Oh yeah, that's what we've got to do. And so a good business advisor doesn't come in with the ego saying, I know everything, listen to me.
No.
It's about saying,
ultimately it's their business.
Have a round table. And they know it better than we do.
I love every time I've been confronted with a crisis in my life, the only way there's 2 things, and you were talking about this before too. Number 1 is, okay, what are the options? What are my choices here? I can do A, I can do B, I can do C. There's a D, So just laying out the options first is a great way to manage a crisis. And the second thing is to go back to your business plan.
Yes.
Why did I start this in the first place? Where am I heading? What am I let's go back to and quite often you go back to that initial principle or plan or belief or goal or dream, a driver, and you go, yeah, this makes sense. I'm back on, baby.
Absolutely.
I'm good to go, And having someone to talk to can be that catalyst to lay out the options, to find other ones, to go back to what it was that got started and make sense of it all and go again. It's
Absolutely.
like half time. Here we go. We're ready to roll.
That's right.
But, I just go back to books. Doctors and lawyers still today have behind them quite often a bookcase full of books. Now, they don't know verbatim what's in every chapter of every book. So the books that they've read, like you, aren't just things that they've learnt, but they're also referenced. So you can go, okay, I remember in this book we saw this principle of this situation. Let's get it out and look it up and see what it says and see if that works.
I've done that so many times with clients. I've even bought books for clients. I said, listen, you need to read this book.
Yeah.
And there are certain books that I give to advisors on the team when I say, look, you need to read this book because it's such a good reference point.
Exactly. Books are amazing.
It is. And this goes back to when Google and search engines were really, coming onto their own and coming onto the scene. And at that time, what differentiated the up-to-speed individual was that they knew how to use a search engine. So if you know how to use a search engine, then you've got a competitive advantage because you can find the knowledge, you can find the information quicker than everyone else does. Now, today, if we look at AI, it isn't necessarily AI that is the immediate threat for the next year or two. It's actually the threat comes from the individuals that learn how to use AI before you do.
Yeah.
And the reason that they learn is because their mind is open, they're reading things, they're watching things, they're listening to podcasts, our sort of conversations, and they're going, I'm going to give that a go. And all of a sudden, they know how to be a prompt engineer, for example. They know how to converse with a GPT.
Yeah.
And they're able to produce a lot more than those that don't know. So the same thing with books is that if you know, if you read a lot of books, you can go, okay, actually have a read of that book, have a read of that book, have a read of chapter 4, really good reference for you.
So 2 things about that. First of all, a guy who works with us, Ian Salter, has in his life gone to a regime of reading or listening to books regularly every day, and you can see in his energy and his approach to life that he is just so much better off by doing it. And if he stops doing that, you can see him losing that energy and enthusiasm and excitement. And it's just that thing that triggers him every day, good habits and good routines, and he's flying when he's on that routine.
Absolutely.
So because what he's doing is he's putting into his memory bank things, solutions to challenges that he can revert back to without even having to think when put in this position. So I'll give you an example. A good book, a classic is The Power of Positive Thinking. It's an old book. It's a great book, and it's a simple book. But having read it, you'll get yourself into difficulty, or you'll hear yourself thinking, you're being jealous of someone or that jerk, or why am I getting treated like a second-class citizen? You'll hear your thoughts and go, no, hang on, correct this.
Reframe it.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a textbook about, calculus or theory or psychology.
Read what you enjoy. I mean, that's critical. It's like being in business. Run the business that you love doing. Do what you do what you love in life. Follow your passions. And same thing with reading. Yeah. But having that breadth is really important. And for me, mathematics, and the only reason I'm reading that book is because it talks about a theory on logic that actually has a lot of applications within business and complex decision making in organizations.
Numbers relate to everything.
So if you understand mathematics and logic, then you can apply it into business and go, okay, I've got 5
you can see
different
patterns.
That's right. And you and then start predicting behaviors. So there's a lot of applications to it.
It's like the universe, all little bits work together.
And in effect, what you end up doing is you control your life, you control your future, because you've read all of that, and subliminally you're still thinking about it, and your mind can turn to them.
And the culture of who you are and how you communicate with people is influenced subtly by all the stuff that you've read and learnt, and what you've decided is a belief or not a belief, what you think is a conviction or a motivation or not.
Absolutely. Now, going back to Ian, for example. So if and I've got Ian on my social media and follow him and I see him, what ends up happening with that sort of individual is that positivity is actually infectious. And so then the people around him, and he has this influence on the people around him. So if we now think, okay, you're a business owner and you've got a team of 5, you've got a team of 10, whatever, and you start consuming information, you start sharing the knowledge, you start having this different step in the way that you walk and the way you embrace your business, everyone else around you will be the same. I see that with my kids. My kids are avid readers. We read as a family, and we share knowledge.
Yeah.
And they have a thirst for knowledge now.
Yeah.
Now imagine if every business owner did that, and their staff are consuming knowledge and they're bringing it in, and what a great working environment.
We hear it about a lot, that really it should be in schools that kids should not. There should be a curriculum which includes psychology and positive thinking and economics and how to manage your budget and how to grow a business and how to make money and the different types of people in the world. There's so many things that we're missing out on.
World. Yeah.
But so books enable us to decide what we want to do to fill in our gaps. But for some people it's understandable that they don't have the time, energy, motivation to read those books. That's where they can come to someone like you to offer them the options, to help them with their choices, to refer them to, why don't you have a read of this little thing here, and distill it for them.
Absolutely. And it's not just reading, it's also all the videos that you watch over the years. I mean, I'm the sort of person, like in my case, I go home and I still consume business. I watch business shows. I watch, often you'll see that we play episodes on this video series or podcast series and it's snippets out of a movie or snippets out of documentaries.
Which you've picked up.
And you pick it up because, and I love the documentaries that go into a business, like a restaurant, for example, and they show you how they operate. That's because I love how it all operates. And then you can share and go, oh, Bruce, check that video out. How do you think that applies for your business? And it's so interesting.
So one of the things we talked about yesterday was why you should turn to a business advisor first. And I said to you, most business owners don't think that they should turn to a business advisor first, and they don't turn to a business advisor first. They turn to a business advisor last when everything's turned pear-shaped.
Yep.
And it's too late quite often, or the work to do to correct it is massive. So why is it like that? And I think one of the first, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. One of the underlying reasons why people don't say, in my arsenal while I'm running my business from day one, I need to have an accountant, a lawyer, a bookkeeper maybe, and a business advisor or a business coach. They don't feel that's necessary. Why? Because a lot of business owners I've met, and I was one of them for years. I remember in the 80s being pig-headed from 84 to 87. I finally relented, thinking, I know my business better than anyone else. What do you know about my business? You don't know anything about my business. I know all about it. Who are you to tell me what I should be doing? All that. I was naive.
Absolutely.
But that is a very common thing.
It's highly common.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that prevents people from doing it, and I'm going to ask you how you get around it in a minute, is that ego and pride. So if I'm running my business and I'm driving a fancy car and everyone in town thinks I'm doing well, but in reality I'm not making any profit and, maybe I've used an inheritance to pay for the car and, won the lottery or something, I'm so embarrassed for people to find out what's going on under the bonnet that I don't want anyone to find out, and I'm prepared to let things operate inefficiently or crash and burn rather than open up and say, hey, can you help me? So how do we deal with that? How do you get around that? How do you deal with that? I know my business best, or I'm too embarrassed to talk to someone, or don't you know?
I'll be honest with you. That sort of attitude, that sort of behaviour, in most cases, is so limiting, is so strong that you actually can't turn the tide. And the more you try to turn it, the more they're going to resist.
Kick back,
the more they're kicking back. So, in all honesty, advisory only works when the business owner is willing to reflect on themselves, where they're willing to accept the realities, they're willing to look in the mirror, and they're the ones that are seeking it out. If they're the ones that put their hand up and say, you know what, I need assistance, I need advice, then it works. If it's forced, and I've got this individual, former friend of mine who had a very successful business. I gave him a lot of advice, a lot of guidance, no cost, because he was a close friend at that time, for many, many, many years. Most of the time he didn't take it, the whole thing tanked. And that was an individual where exactly what you just said, had the expensive car, had the expensive house, millions and millions of dollars of just toys and stuff, lots of money going through the business. And at one point it was a very successful business, profitable. But the ego was the thing that got in the way. And this person, even though I had best intentions, he had free advice continuously on tap. You know, he could call me anytime. Didn't take it, and as a result, the business ended up failing. Now, it's not because I know it best, but it's because I have a different perception. I come at it from a different angle.
Yeah, you can see from outside.
So to answer that question, if you're listening to this as a business owner or you're watching us, unless you're willing to accept the realities, and the realities might be that you're the problem in the business, it's not going to work. The advisor-client relationship is very intimate, but it only works if you can both be honest with each other and if you can be on the same page and if you're willing to accept the realities and work on yourself if you need to.
So a lot of people with drinking or alcohol or gambling problems have to hit rock bottom before they seek help.
That's right.
A lot of people only turn their life around after they've got divorced or some major crash, or they've shut their business down or lost it. Or entrepreneurs want to just keep growing their business till it bursts, till it busts. They can't sort of...
And I had that ego in my first business.
Yeah, it's human nature.
The ego was extraordinary. I thought I was, God's gift to business.
Yeah.
And then when the whole thing collapses, you realise, shit, that's actually not quite the case.
My message is that if you're running a business and you want to get the most out of business and the most out of your life and the most for your business when you go to sell it one day, then be prepared to get somebody on board who's going to confidentially, genuinely look at that business and see what they can do to help you. Not for what's best for them, but what's best for you. They're going to tell you honestly what needs to be done, because there's no point lying. And if you can do that before it hits the fan, before you crash, you are going to be so much happier, so much better. I suppose it's like if you can not get obese and look after yourself and stay fit now, get a personal trainer now, it's a lot less work than, when you're in hospital with type 2 diabetes.
That's right. But then having that obese client come to you if you're a medical practitioner and turning the mindset around is very, very difficult. That's challenging.
It's ingrained.
You just don't want to get to that stage.
No.
And I challenge everyone out there at the moment, I'll challenge you with this, is take your favourite sports team. Take your favourite professional athlete, right? Let's take Usain Bolt, or let's take any professional team you can think of. And I challenge you to find any substantial team, any well-performing team that does not have at least one coach on their team. I challenge you to find. You won't find any. They don't exist. And so you've got to wonder, you've got to go, okay, if the superstars out there have coaches, if the superstar singer out there has got a voice coach, has got coaches behind them, guiding them, they've got mentors. If they've got
trainers,
then why shouldn't the average business owner have that? What gives the average business owner the ego to go,
I don't need that.
I don't need that. And quite often that's the paradox. Those that say I don't need it, they're actually the ones that need it.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is those superstar business owners have that advice and take that advice.
That's right.
I have never met a really successful business person.
I've never met any either.
Who just goes, I'm doing it all myself. I'm winging it.
And it's always the superstar entrepreneurs that I've dealt with, and I say entrepreneurs because they're not business owners, they're not in a job, they're entrepreneurs. They have a great team, great culture in the organisation.
They get feedback, they listen.
They get feedback, they're always self-developing, they're learning. They're the ones that go to the Tony Robbins and pay for the big expensive tickets. And I'm not saying that's what you've got to do.
No.
But
they're
they put
prepared to
themselves
listen
out there.
and
Exactly.
learn more,
Exactly. And on their team, you will find the accountant, the lawyer, the bookkeeper, the business advisor, the marketing professional. They bring everything in and they work together as a team for a joint outcome.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to say something here. A lot of my Indian clients are very successful in business, and it's because they're open-minded and they really absorb the juice out of everything, and they can't suck up enough information. They'll go to every seminar, every conference. They'll talk to every advisor. They'll put a great team together. They're hungry for more. They've never said, I know everything, you know nothing. They're always like, tell me more. How can I be better? It's a great mindset.
And that goes back to the culture that they came from. I mean, if you look at India, if you look at some of the Asian cultures, I'm Hungarian by background, and I know from a Hungarian background point of view, education is number one. It's like it was drilled into us growing up as kids that it's all about learning, education.
Getting the edge.
Yeah, that's probably why I am who I am. My brother's the same. He's a super successful lawyer, constantly reading, constantly at the top of his profession in terms of knowledge and all of that. Whereas I think generally in Australia, we don't have education so ingrained in family values at home. This is just from my experience, from what I've seen. So often you see the immigrants coming in and they have that attitude and they're wiping out those that have been here for generations. Why? Because they're hungry to succeed and they're willing to listen and they're willing to experiment.
Have a look at Australia's most successful and richest and fastest growing companies. Most have come from migrants. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So maybe that's another podcast that we'll have to have a chat about at some stage.
So what's your takeaway today, Pete?
Well, my takeaway and the message is that, number one, business advisors bring a lot of wealth of experience, both in the real world, but also a lot of knowledge from reading, from self-education. And number two, the good business advisors will be members of your team there with your agenda in mind, not theirs. And they'll work with you. They'll guide you. They'll coach you. They'll mentor you. They'll get hands-on and deep and dirty within the business with you. But the important aspect of this discussion is that it only works if you're willing to work with that advisor in a very transparent way. And if you're willing to look in the mirror and reflect and be willing to accept that sometimes it is us who are the problems and we need to make some changes ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a personal trainer. They're not going to... Just having a personal trainer is not going to make you fit. You've got to do the work.
Exactly.
You've got to want to do the work.
And the good ones will crack the whip and they'll do it the right way so that you get the motivation to
give you the best
to want to do it.
Posture, whatever. Okay, mine is two things. Number one, you may not know your business best. Business owners, you may not be the best person to know what's best for your business. You might think you do, but to listen to somebody else's perspective might be very enlightening. And number two, whenever you're confronted with a stressful, difficult situation, just sit down and lay down the options. Think about all your choices, all your options, and go back to your business plan and just reassess what got you into it, why you're doing what you're doing, and where you want to be.
And probably one other thing that I'll add to that is I'd take it one step further and I'd say think of it as a game of chess. You know the outcome. You know that there's so many different moves that you need to make. And so when you've got those options in front of you, play out the scenarios in your head as well. So you don't just see the options, you've played them out and going, okay, if I did this, here's the different variables, here's the different way. So then you can truly understand the implications of the decisions you make.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Well, I think we've...
Now I'm going to go and read some of those books I've got sitting on the bookshelf and throw those Jack Reacher books out.
Sounds good. And maybe what we'll do is we'll share some of the books that we're reading with the audience. So
or podcasts.
On the podcast, yep. So if you're on whatever social media channel, wherever you're listening, watching us, we'll put a list of some good titles that we recommend you go away and have a listen to or watch.
All right. Mine will be better than yours, Pete.
We'll see. Thanks,
right.
Bruce.
Cheers. Bye.